start recording. And I will just say, this is Stephanie. How do you pronounce your last name? I don't want to mess it up.
Pereira.
Pereira. So thank you for joining us tonight, Stephanie. I'm very, congratulations on your book. It's quite an achievement, I think, to publish a book these days. So that's wonderful. And everyone I know who has read the book has had wonderful things to say about it. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for all of your help and flexibility in organizing this.
And thanks to you, because I know we had to reschedule. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it works. It's how it goes, right? And we'll touch a little bit on it tonight, just in that flexibility and going with the flow, because if you can't do that in parenthood, you're going to have a harder time than if you can, right? So I'm Stephanie Pereira. I am author of Embrace the Beautiful Chaos of Motherhood, The Secret of Staying True to Yourself. And tonight I want to bring to you just 4 of kind of the highlights maybe of the first part of the book. So there are different sections of the book. The first part is all about reconnecting with yourself as a person. You go into parenthood, specifically motherhood, and it can be really challenging to get back to yourself, because in the beginning phase, it's natural just to have that newborn baby's needs totally ahead of yours, right? Like even simple things of going to the bathroom or eating, or things that, we wouldn't question before, it's not even up for consideration, right? If the baby's crying, if the baby's hungry, if they need held, if they need, anything, we are 100% theirs. And then once that phase transitions into the next phase, sometimes we kind of stay there, still putting 110% of ourselves into them. And that's awesome and amazing, and actually part of what motherhood should be, and parenthood. But it's a dance, right? So anyway, that first part is all about getting back to yourself. The second part is all about reconnecting with your significant other, because that's typically the second thing to go, right? Like first we sacrifice ourselves, oh, it's okay. I'll eat a cold dinner, or, oh, I'll get something later. And then our marriage ends up taking, is the next to get thrown out of the window, so to speak, when there are just so many demands. If you have 1 kid, if you have 12 kids, it doesn't matter. You're always at max capacity. So, and then the last part of the book, I provide just different tools and things that I've used personally to help me in those, oh my God, moments where all hell's breaking loose, but I don't want to lose it. I want to just connect back to that piece and kind of recenter. So the 4 of the top tips that, if I had to boil the book down, and getting back to yourself, that's what I'll share with you tonight. Common parenting woes, definitely lack of time. I hear this from every parent I talk to. There's so much, if you're an at-home mom, if you're work from home, if you're, work outside of the home, whatever, it doesn't matter actually what job you do or don't do. Parenting is a full-time job. And this is probably the number one concern usually in clients I work with, or just parents in general. Little to no time for self. I don't know. This is for self-care. Let me see if I can. There you go. Not having this time for ourselves. Okay, right. Totally ties into the lack of time. Makes complete sense. However, one of the biggest things that I hear all the time is, well, wait, if I already have this lack of time, taking time for myself seems totally contradictory to getting more time. We'll get into that, but that's another huge concern. Feeling pulled in many directions, not only from people needing things from us, right? Like our kids, like our partner, like our jobs, or whatever other demands, but even in those subtle ways of, even if you're just decompressing, so to speak, on social media, and you're getting flooded with advice, um, almost always unsolicited, right? Of, oh, you should be doing this, or you should be doing that, or how about, have you tried this method? Or no, not that method, do this one. And it can leave our heads totally spinning. And we're just like, I don't know, it's already so hard. I don't have time to, going back to that first one, to even research and really get into any of this other stuff of what is really best. And the more that we focus on that, of feeling pulled in too many directions and really trying to get into the right thing instead of tuning into ourselves, we actually become more disconnected from like our natural instincts as a parent. The next one is lack of connection with others. So this is, if you've ever been in the grocery store and you maybe cross paths with an acquaintance, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How you doing? Oh, what have you been up to? And that question, and then you're like a deer in headlights, right? You're like, what? What? Uh, I know that I've been nonstop busy, and there hasn't been a reprieve since, I don't know, 2007, but I don't really have anything specific, right? Of like, oh, well, I've been doing this and been doing that, because it's all so in depth and so intricate, and it's too deep just for that quick exchange. So, oh, just the mom thing, or oh, just taking care of the kids, or, and I understand that in that situation, we do kind of downplay it. But when we take a step back and look at it, like, what is the connection that we're missing, right? Usually starting with ourselves, because the more in tune we are with ourselves, the easier time that we have relating to other people. And even if it's just in that no words spoken glance, mom to mom, or, parent to parent, of like, I understand she's teething right now, say no more, and so it it's important, right, to really tune into ourselves so that we can better tune in with other people. Oh, and then the last one, guilt, right? Mom guilt is a real thing. Dad guilt is also a real thing. Just basically, we love these kids so much. They are literally our hearts. Well, not literally, but they are our hearts walking outside of our bodies. And that means we want the absolute best for them. And when we feel like we should be doing better, or, what we're doing isn't enough, or going back to that first one, if we just had more time, if we just had a better system, if we just had a book, I mean, my book is a great place to start, of course, but if we just had something outside of ourselves, it would be better. When we get into that place, that's usually a red flag of, hey, come on back, reconnect with yourself, take some time. Let's focus on shifting some of those thoughts. And actually, that ties us into what we're going to talk about first. Let me go here. Really quick, here is a picture of the cover of my book, Embrace the Beautiful Chaos of Motherhood, Secret of Staying True to Yourself. It was an Amazon bestseller. I also run the Marriage Recharge. It's a 30-day goddess challenge, which is something highlighted in the second part of my book. And that's become a course, an online course and small group study, where we just take the time to get back to ourselves so we can show up better, not only for ourselves, but then also for our partners. And then this is my lovely family. So William here, I think you can see my cursor, right? So this is William. He's 14, Michael, almost 13, and Jess is 6. I mentioned to Sydney, 6 going on 26. It's crazy. My husband, Almir, and me, and that was in our backyard with this gorgeous rainbow. So the top 4 tips to embrace your beautiful chaos, right? Because yes, the days are so long, so long, so hectic, so crazy. Sometimes we feel like we're drinking out of a fire hose with all the stuff that we have to do. And, right as you're making that final push to get out the door, for example, they're like, oh, I have to poop. And you're like, seriously, right now? Or just crazy stuff, right? Stuff that you can't even make up. I don't even know how many things that I've had to say that I never, ever, ever thought that I would say, of like, take that out of the microwave, or weird stuff. I'm just seriously, guys. But there's beauty in that, in from the twinkle in their eye to those huge hugs, and just that tight squeeze of their loving arms around your neck. There's so much beauty there. The more that we're tapped into ourselves, the easier we can access that beauty, and the less painful it is, right? Because the chaos will always be there no matter what. So very first is to give yourself credit. And here's a quick, if you happen to have a pen and paper close by, or you could do this mentally, but it's better if you have a pen and paper close by. And I'm going to give you, I don't know, let's say 30 seconds to a minute. I'll keep track of the time. And if I asked you what you should be doing but aren't in these 30 seconds, see how many things you can list. Like, my mind already jumps to, you should be scheduling your day better. You should, right? And like the shoulds kind of come up easy. So go ahead. I will start a timer here. Go ahead and make your list. All right. So you don't have to tell me how many, but you can take a look at your list, a little evaluation. If it was mentally, totally fine. Just go and roughly estimate. Was it 5? Was it 10? Was it endless, with a ... at the end, just because that was what you were feeling. And now, either next to that, on the back of that paper, or on a fresh list in your mind, in the same amount of time, list the things that you're doing well, things that you're like, you know what, I'm really proud of this, the way that I am, fill in the blank. Okay. Now, compare the list, not necessarily with what's on there, but with the quantity of things. Was it easier to list what you should be doing but aren't, or was it easier to focus on what's going well, what you're doing well?
Speaking as for the librarian, I could tell you my list of what I need to do or should be doing is
Yeah.
as long as my arm, and I could only come up with one thing that I was really proud of.
Yes. Yeah.
Sad.
And no, well, yes and no, right? Because then our inner critic jumps in and like, see, you should be paying more attention to what you're doing well. And that's where we kind of have to be like, wait a second, have a seat far away over there, inner critic, and just witness it right now. Just show up and look at the list. Okay, wow, this side was way easier for me. And that's just because that's our habit, right? Of how we're seeing things. It's almost, you have two muscles, right? That muscle's stronger because that is a go-to. Actually, that helps us a lot of times to be more productive, get more stuff done, always have this running list of things we should be doing, ways we could be improving. That's always a goal. So it's not totally bad. I love to do this exercise. And this is always the almost always the result where people are like, I mean, I couldn't think of anything, or I only thought of one or two things. So the same way that the should list is that muscle that we all have gotten really good at strengthening, the focusing on what's going well and what we're doing well is also that muscle. So if your lists were kind of unproportional, it's totally fine. Use this as an invitation, right, to strengthen that muscle of, hey, even if it's just once a day, once a week, if you're not doing any of this and you start once a month sitting down and focusing on what's going well, specifically to parenthood or anything really, if it's your job, if it's your marriage, if it's showing up as a mom, if it's whatever it is, if it's, your role in your community, any area that you want to improve, where our focus goes, the energy flows, right? So we have an easier time not only noticing more of these positives, but then also we kind of build that upward spiral and that momentum. We have that going in our favor where we're like, oh yeah, no, that was good. And that was good. And we almost approach our day in a different way because we're looking for those good things, right? The same way that as I'm going through my day, or not even my day, if I'm in my kitchen and I'm there's that mental inventory, right? And maybe it's because I have two teenagers in the house and we go through so much. It's impressive. I mean, I'm like, guys, seriously, can we just bring it down? And so there's always that mental inventory, that list that I'm running. So anything that I notice, I'm like, yep, tuck that in, tuck that in. Now, the same is true if, you're focusing on developing that muscle of what's, going well for you, what you're totally just, it doesn't even have to be totally crushing, just what you're showing up for and you're proud of. So then, if that's your intention in the beginning of the day and you start your day, you're like, oh yeah, that was good. Yep. Oh, that went really smooth. That was nice. Oh, I handled that so well. And then that inner critic goes from you should be to kind of that inner cheerleader of like, yeah, that was good. Yep. More of that. Yep. Way to go. Way to go. So it's just keep in mind, it is a muscle and that's totally fine. Even if you came up with 0 things, totally fine, because you can always course correct and redirect and say, okay, well, how can I start seeing the positives? How can I notice what I'm doing well as a mom? And actually the whole first chapter of the book is dedicated to noticing your amazingness. And I mean, moms, if you think about all that we do, and sorry, Mike, I'm used to saying moms, but dads too. But when you think about every single thing that we do, it's really impressive, like really, really impressive. And we don't give ourselves that credit that we deserve. So one other thing that you can do is to take a couple minutes. We won't do this now, but I'll just explain it to you. And take a couple minutes and make a list of everything you do in the course of a day. This is actually in the book, in that first chapter. From the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, including the smallest tasks of, and then I thought about what we were going to have for dinner, and then I let the dog out, and then I let the dog in. It's may seem a little tedious, but just for this one exercise, bear with me. And remember that even these little tasks add up to a miraculous feat. I go into way more detail about all of this in the book, but once you do that list, just take a step back and marvel at everything that you do in a typical day. And from there, you can kind of use that as a springboard to set a timer for 1 minute and just list qualities that you admire about yourself. Sometimes this is hard for people to do. I totally understand that, depending on where you are. You can also, if you feel comfortable, let's say you get into this 1 minute of listing stuff that you admire about yourself, or things that you've done within the past month, year, whatever that you're proud of. You can send a text or email to people asking them how they would describe your three best qualities. Is it whatever they say, people that you love and trust, and you feel like they would be really honest with you. It's always surprising for me to get this. I don't know why I'm always surprised. I'm like, really? You think that? Oh, that's so nice. And there's nothing wrong with asking that, because a lot of times we don't even realize, right? Like, we don't realize how many people have so many nice things to say about us until we start asking. And then, of course, I'm always willing to repay these friends, not with money, but but just with the same exercise after the fact, just to say, hey, I'm trying to figure out some things, or I'm working on my self-gratitude, and what's your impression of me? What's your perspective? And it's always good to get that kind of unbiased opinion. Anyway, number 2, self-care. So like I touched on, right? Self-care, I can also interchange with self-love. And I know a lot of people say like self-care Sunday, or in my honest definition for self-care is anything at all that makes you feel good, makes you feel more peaceful, makes you feel more like yourself, right? So if there's a friend that you love talking to, just because even on the absolute worst day, you're talking to her and she just kind of brings you home, or you can forget, you kind of disconnect from those problems and totally forget about it, even if it's just for the time you're on the phone with her. That to me is a form of self-care. Could it also be a bubble bath? Sure, if that brings you that joy, if that's something that you like. The typical self-care things might not be self-care for you. For example, I'm not a runner, okay? But so many of my clients love running and get that runner's high after, and they just love it. They swear by it. And I'm like, girlfriend, go for it. You do you. And I won't do that because my knees hurt, and it's just, I'm not the best runner. But anyway, taking time for yourself, like it says here, may seem counterproductive. I thought this for years, and it's actually what was one of the main things that was keeping me stuck. I go into way more detail in the book, but there's a very clear before and after when I'm in my chaos, and people are like, well, what changed? Okay, so I was working with an energy therapist, but also, and doing like energy healing and things like that. But also, I was taking time for myself, and I became a priority again on my to-do list. I actually got back on my to-do list because up until that time, for like 7 years, I wasn't even on my own radar. I was just so used to putting everyone's needs ahead of mine. And I was a martyr mom. I had to prove my deep, deep love for my family through sacrifice and through how much I wasn't doing for myself. And this was all indirectly. I wasn't planning this of like, today I'm going to show them how much I love them. And by totally, neglecting myself, it was on that subconscious level. It was something that I just had inside of like, you know what? I can't do something for me. I already have such a short amount of time to get everything that I have to do, let alone want to do done, that I can't take time for myself. I saw that as being very selfish. But then the quote right next to it is from the book, the better you feel, the better you everything. In my moments of being that martyr mom, I wasn't showing up in my best form for anybody, for myself, for my husband, definitely not for my kids. They were getting that, that knee-jerk response, short fuse patience, well, lack of patience, just that like, come on already, get your shoes, put them on, let's go, and then at the end of the day, when everything calmed down, they were sleeping, I would look at them, think back, reflect on that day, have that should list just come flooding down in my mind, and just be like, the hell am I doing? Ugh, ugh. And then that mom guilt kicks in and that whole cycle starts. But because I was like, you know what, I just have to be better and I have to do better and they deserve better. And they do. Our kids deserve our absolute best. But we can only give that to them when we're taking care of ourselves and when we're taking time away from them to do what we love to do. If it's gardening, if it's going on a walk, if it's spending time in nature, if it's going and getting our nails done, if it's getting our hair done, if it's whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If it's hiding in your bathroom and dancing or doing yoga or calling a friend, it doesn't matter. As long as someone's there taking care of them, or that they're safe or during nap time or whatever. And we have that time for ourselves that we can do something totally unrelated to kids and totally related to ourselves. That is the self-care. And that's where the magic takes place. So again, if you do have that piece of paper, I'm going to give you a short amount of time, maybe 30 seconds again, to a minute, and just write your very first response to what do I wish I had more time to do? So if it could be anything at all, there's a magic wand that you can wave. So forgetting COVID, forgetting everything right now, in the perfect ideal world, what do you wish you had more time to do? Could be something that you used to do that, you've kind of lost touch with because life with kids, or something that you recently saw that you've never done before and you're like, it looks kind of cool. I would like to try that. Maybe it's kayaking, maybe it's whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Just write that down. And then you can also think about things you would like to do for yourself in the following areas: physical, mental, emotional, educational, creative and self-expression, and spiritual. So go ahead and take some time, whatever comes, again, don't judge it. Whatever comes up, just put it down. And if you go back and cross it out later, fine, no big deal. But these are things that will get you to that better feeling place. Even if it only happens once a year, once a month, once a week, it doesn't have to be all day, every day, because motherhood really isn't conducive to that, an all day, every day type of thing, because there is still sacrifice that is required. But this is one of my favorite quotes from the whole entire book. It's been coming up a lot for me around Mother's Day, which last year it did too. So it basically says this: there's no limit to what our lovely family will take from us. There's no limit. The more we give, the more they'll take, and the more and more and more and more and more. So there's no limit to what our lovely, beautiful family will take from us, but there is a limit of what we can give, especially if we're not replenishing, refueling. With cars, for example, that you have to go to the gas station. I mean, unless it's electric, but you have to recharge it. Same with our cell phones, same with our computers, whatever it is, we have to go back to that source, fill it up, and then we can go back again. So that's my little thing for self-care. So important. And it doesn't matter what it is, even if it's something like you like roller derby or anything. Because a lot of people would be like, roller derby, that's not relaxing. If that lights you up and gives you that hell yeah feeling, that's your self-care. That is one of the highest forms of self-love for yourself, is carving out time for yourself to do what you love doing. Okay. My third tip is to know that expectations, especially unrealistic ones, cause unnecessary stress. For the areas where you feel you're coming up short consistently, question if the expectation you have for yourself or your partner, your children, whoever, your job, your schedule, whatever it is, are realistic for this phase of your life. So I took the longest time to learn this, but once I got it, it was a total game changer for me. And here's why. I would think when I had my first son and he was a baby, I felt, even though everyone was like, "Oh, cherish it. It goes by so fast." Um, I'm like, yeah, I know, goes by fast. 18 years, fast. Yeah. But in that moment, it felt like it would never end. Those long days, long nights, right? And he was a dreamboat baby, right? But still, it was exhausting. And there was so much of myself that I was giving. I already said I wasn't really taking care of myself. I wasn't doing what I love specifically because I was focusing on him and then on his brother and then on his sister and anything. Anyway, um, so I never saw a particular phase as just a phase because when I was in those moments, it didn't seem like it was a phase. I couldn't see past the end of that phase. And then that made it seem like it was forever. Well, at least in that moment for me. But now I'm looking back and I was like, but what? Why? Why did I see it that way? Um, Basically, I was too into it, right? Not into it, but I was too close to it. And had I possibly taken that time to disconnect a little bit from it and just let it marinate in my mind, I feel like I would have had a better perspective on the whole thing. And be like, well, he won't be teething forever. He won't be in diapers forever, or whatever was most exhausting for me. So this phase of your life is essential to consider because it won't always be that you're waking up in the middle of the night for your kids. It won't always be that, it's cool to see how it changes over time. And actually, this is something that was much easier for me to see having a 14-year-old and, kind of getting into it. My boys are 14 months apart, so we had them back to back. Yes, it was planned. Everybody asked that. Not that it's anybody's business, but everybody asked. And yeah, because we wanted diapers all together. We wanted all the phases together. And luckily, two boys, they're best friends. It's beautiful to see. But then we needed a long break. And 6 years later, 7 years later, my daughter came into the picture. So it was easier by the third time around and easier after seeing, oh wow, my oldest, when she was born, was halfway through elementary school, like the younger elementary school. So it gave me more perspective. But just ask yourself, for this phase of your life, it won't be forever. And there's a part at the end of the book where I talk about getting a minivan and how I always swore I would never, ever get a minivan. But then when I realized that it was just for this phase, we did end up getting a minivan. Honestly, I love it. But anyway, we're not here to talk about a Toyota Sienna. Questions related to this. What expectations do you have for yourself that you have a hard time meeting? So is there something that comes up that, for me, for example, I love taking bubble baths, right? Not all the time because it's a lot of water. I don't have that much time. But I have this goal. Well, I had this goal of taking one like soaking bubble bath a week. Time for myself just to unwind, put on music, the candle, the whole thing, like really get into that whole vibe. But I wasn't doing it. I was lucky if it would happen quarterly. So I noticed this and I would see every week it was on my note of like, hey, don't forget me. What about the bath this week? And I was still showering. So, we're good. But yeah. So then I had to take a step back. I'm like, look, with the schedule being as crazy as it is, and me being as tired as I am at the end of the day, is it really realistic once a week? So then I altered that, made it once a month, or I think there was a time that it was even like, don't even put a time limit on it. Just when I can, I will, right? And that worked for a certain amount of time. So anything that comes up that you notice, you're like, look, I'm having a really hard time getting dinner on the table every day at 6 p.m. How can you adjust that expectation? Is it that you adjust by asking someone for more help? Is it that you adjust your expectation in what you're making? Maybe instead of preparing like a totally fresh thing, you're just going to do something more grab and go. or like just like a grazing meal, like a snacking meal, whatever. And is that okay? Does that match the phase that you're in right now? Next question, are these expectations realistic for this phase of your life? So is it realistic to expect, my toddler to sit quietly through dinner? No, I don't even know. Is it realistic to expect my middle schoolers to do that? I don't know. Is it just their personality? So, and then you have to take that into account as well, not only their ages, but personality, the family dynamic. Maybe you have a lot of other stuff happening. So really just zoom out far enough that you can see that it's just for this phase. It will not be forever. And then you can ask yourself the parts that you're like, yeah, it's kind of unrealistic. And it is something that's stressing me out. So the immediate question after that is, how can I modify it? Like, what would make it better? And once you can answer what would make that better, you're kind of on the right track to correcting that stress.
Can I ask a question, Stephanie?
Yeah, of course.
So it sounds like basically you're calling us out for being perfectionists, because a lot of times we are, and basically saying, a compromise now is not a compromise forever. It's just a compromise to take some stress off of yourself right now. Right?
Exactly. Yes. And I don't know if this made it into the book, but I do always say, if you're looking for perfection, especially in motherhood, because there's so much that's out of our control, you will never find it. It doesn't exist. You can be as good as you can, right? Or as like excellence, you can strive for excellence, but it has a different feeling, because I was looking for that for years, for the longest time. It was just like, no, for me to be a good mom, I have to do this right. And it has to be perfect. And it has to be a certain way. And actually today I was journaling and something really beautiful came up, that there are infinite ways to show up for your kids, to show up for your partner, and they're all correct. They're all correct. So in that, I was like, oh yeah, that's really deep, because it isn't just that one way that I saw on Instagram or Pinterest or whatever platform I was scrolling through. It can be any way that feels good to me and the person I'm sharing that moment with. Right. So that in itself is the perfection of not being perfect, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you. That was nice. Yeah, perfect. Mm-mm. And the expectation of, well, first of all, let me say, social media lies. Like, it's so easy to see someone, like if you look at any holiday, right? Have you seen the posts where it's like that smiling family and the kids are like all nice and dressed up, and maybe they're like on a white sofa. I don't even have a white sofa in my house. Like, it doesn't make sense. But if you do, awesome. I applaud you. And one isn't better or worse than the other, but they're there, and it's just like this totally Instagram ready or Pinterest ready photo. And they're like, oh, happy Mother's Day. This is the best day ever. I'm so thankful. Right. And then I don't know what it is, but either in the comments or something before, it's like, that you were like, everybody quiet, smile, of like, to get that look, because it's not, if you have a 4-year-old boy and, a whole bunch of kids running around, and for everybody to be here, like, yes, here we are, the little cherubs. Is that realistic? No, but as we're scrolling, right, we see that and we're like, my kids would never do that. Or, and without that, like, maybe like little, not even pinch, but like nudge here, or like, hey, look, smile, and you're doing is smile, and just trying to get everybody there. So it's definitely easy to get sucked into that and be like, oh my gosh, look. And even influeers or other authors or anybody, of like, oh my gosh, she has it all together. And for the longest time, I thought that that was a thing until this was very eye-opening for me. I was listening to a talk that Gabrielle Bernstein was giving. She is one of my favorite authors, writes a lot about spirituality and just kind of demystifying it. And something that she said, she was answering one of the questions from an audience member, and she was like, look, you know what? Right now, I'm working with 3 therapists. Now, in my mind, I had thought that she had it all together because she wrote, I don't know, 5 books. You know, she's has this huge following on social media. She always has meaningful posts. She was on the Oprah Winfrey show. I mean, like Super Soul Sunday, the real deal, right? I'm like, oh wow, she has it all together. And the moment that she said, she was like, no, so right now, don't even worry. I'm working with 3 therapists because one, you know, is about this, one is for trauma, one's for, and my jaw literally dropped. I was like, wait, what? She's, you're working with it. Oh, and not even that I had any type of association with the therapist, but just in my mind, my expectation for her and what she has to present in her profession is that she has it all together. But I loved her vulnerability and just that transparency of saying, no, nobody has it all together. So there isn't a mom in the whole entire world or dad that gets it right every single day. There are lots of good days that we have, lots of good moments that we're like, yes, oh, that felt so good. And I love that. Awesome. And then there are other moments that we're just like, you know what? No. Oh, everybody just go to bed because we really need to restart tomorrow. Like that's how bad of a train wreck this day has been. And that's okay. Everybody has that. Even parenting experts, everybody. Um, so yeah, that was a beautiful point about the perfection. Anyway, number 4 is follow your joy and the joy will follow you. My favorite way that 2 years ago, I shifted the way I saw success. For the longest time, of course, it was, you know, in my accomplishments and what I was producing and stuff that I could easily show, right? Or in that quick grocery exchange, hey, what have you been up to? Oh, well, I just got this. Or, oh, yeah, well, you know, just wrote a book, just did this. I think it was 2 years ago where I had this really big shift in how I viewed success. And I decided to, of course, continue to do things, right? And produce and all of that, but from a different place. And now my favorite way to view success is to measure it by how much joy I'm feeling in any given moment. And actually, in the book, I share, I was a chaperone for my son's field trip to the New Jersey Aquarium. On the way back, we hit some traffic on 76, and we happened to be right next to a tractor trailer. Of course, the whole left side of the bus starts doing this, you know, blow that horn, blow that horn. And he blew it. Even though, you know, we're at a standstill traffic, the bus erupted. So much joy, so much laughter. It was awesome. Even the chaperones, you know, broke out. It was truly contagious. It was an awesome moment. And then the traffic shifted and we're next to another tractor trailer. And so the kids were totally fired up. They're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get all the tractor trailers. Yes, blow that horn, blow that horn. And he didn't. I mean, you could see he was just like, nope, I'm not blowing my horn. And was, for whatever reason, not feeling it. And the kids, they were funny because they were like, they went from blow that horn all excited to like, oh my gosh, sour apple. Then they started chanting that this guy's a sour apple. Now, was that fair? I don't know. But it was crazy to see how the traffic shifted again. And they were with the first tractor trailer and they're like, okay, let's get this guy again. Here's the nice guy. And he did it again, even though we were in the standstill. And then in that moment, I was just like, wow, how am I showing up for my kids? Am I showing up for that, like that first truck driver or like the second one? And I realized that I was showing up like the second one more than I was happy to admit to myself at that time. And so then that's kind of what started the shift. Because if I'm just viewing in stuff that I'm getting done, items I'm crossing off of my to-do list, or what I'm doing for my kids or even with my kids, but I'm not really showing up with them and having fun with them in the moment, is that really success? And so these questions started just spinning in my mind. And I was like, yeah, is that really success? No, I don't think so. And so I was able to shift in how I view success. And that's not to say that, I'm not still checking things off of my to-do list and things like that, but it's a more fun approach to it where I'm like, wait, what can I have to do the dishes. Fine. It's inevitable. Or laundry. What will make it better for me? Maybe listening to an audiobook, maybe putting on my favorite music, there and kind of dancing in between. Will it take a little longer? Yeah, but I'm having more fun doing it. So that task then becomes more successful, right? By my definition. So that's been a question that I always ask myself, what will make this moment right now more fun? Will talking in a silly accent make bath time for my daughter more fun? She loves it. And yeah, so then she starts laughing, it makes me laugh, and then we're just being silly together. Awesome. So if it's even little things like that, or pretending you're doing a cooking show when you're making dinner, maybe I'm the only one that does that, I don't know. But little tiny things that just bring in that joy. So the more that you're looking for it, the same way as the very first tip, the more you're looking for what's going right and what you're doing well and what you can be proud of, the more you're looking for your joy, the more opportunity for joy you'll find. And then that kind of wraps up those 4 tips. Here are ways that we can connect, because I love supporting moms and parents in general, but I have a Facebook group specifically for moms. It's facebook.com/groups/embrace the beautiful chaos. And I think, Sydney, can we email out
Yes.
okay. So I'll have this emailed, but my website is there, Instagram, Facebook, and a YouTube channel is in the works. So that's exciting. That'll be Embrace the Beautiful Chaos too. Yeah, it's fun. Just so then, I mean, that was a platform that I used a lot. That's how I make doing the dishes and laundry more enjoyable, is just watching either funny things, scenes from my favorite movies, like the really funny parts, just the highlight reel, watching that and just remembering that, or possibly watching a movie. Usually that doesn't work for me because somebody's going to come in and interrupt, or just come in and maybe not even talk to me, but just be loud enough that I can't really hear it, even if I'm wearing AirPods, whatever. It's how it goes. But yeah. So all of that. And then if anybody has any questions, oh yeah, and then here's a little piece about the Marriage Recharge course. It's a small group online course for moms. You can message me if you have any questions right now. There is a current group going through, and that goes through July. So that is exciting.
Why don't we see if anybody has questions? So
yeah,
maybe we could go back to, I'm going to stop your sharing if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
All right, so let's go back and maybe we'll make just a gallery, since we have a pretty small group, and see if anybody has any questions that they would like to ask. Please feel free to unmute yourself. It's a small group. So. Do you find that you're getting a lot of questions from parents this past year about how to deal with the change in the way that parenting is done these days?
I'm starting to get questions now. And even though I was expecting a lot last year, right? Why I launched my book. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time to launch the book. It kind of was. I mean, it was. But at the same time, I feel like everyone was at max capacity on every level and just, reduced bandwidth, literally and figuratively, where they couldn't bring more stuff in, right? They went to survival mode and that was it. I do feel like, generally speaking, people are starting to get out of that and become more comfortable, and they're at a place now where it's stabilized enough where they're more comfortable to start reaching out and receiving, instead of just, oh, we're going to stick with what we know.
Maybe they can reflect a little bit more. They might have a little bit more room psychologically or emotionally to do that.
Definitely.
Makes sense. Well, I know that Holly read your book, so I don't know if she has.
Hey, Holly. Thank you.
I was one of the ones that Sydney asked to read your book.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
I felt like a lot of the advice was stuff I should already know and just forget to implement. And I feel like I learned a lot too. So I appreciate what you have to share with our community.
Yeah.
I don't really have questions, but I do have a long list of what I would like to have more time to do. And
awesome.
I'm going to reread your book and try and find ways to do that.
Yes. So thank you. That's beautiful. Yeah. And just know it's not just like I wrote the book, right? And then I recorded the audiobook. So not only like wrote it, edited, all of that stuff, read it again, multiple times for the audio recording. But then I think last summer, I'm sure I was in the kitchen doing something and it came up, right? That I was like, oh yeah, let me hear this. And it was one of the parts, I don't even remember the exact part, but it stopped me in my tracks. I was like, oh yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, that's good. It was all, I was like, did that come from me? And so even as the author, there are times that motherhood gets so intense and we're just so in it that we always need those reminders, right? So, and then it's fun. Then the guilt kind of crept in and I'm like, oh my gosh, your own book, you don't even realize, it's just, well, you stop. It's not these multiple personalities, but I say it that way so you can almost hear the thought process that's going through, that you can stop that like inner critic mid-sentence, and there's nothing wrong with it. Like the inner critic's going to show up, or whatever you call it, if it's whatever title you want to assign, or like that judgment that comes up, it will come up. Especially, I feel like as a mom, I feel like we're so hard on ourselves, and but it goes back to that underlying reason is because we love these little kids so much, and we know that they deserve the absolute best, our absolute best. And just being in that place of like, I always want to be better for my kids, almost automatically makes you an amazing mom, because you're always looking for that, and if that's always like, if that's what you're striving for, that you're golden. Not that it's not hard work, but just having that desire of like, no, I do tomorrow, I do want to do this better, or this week my focus is going to be on this, or whatever it is, whatever comes up. There's always something that comes up. That was another big realization for me too, of just knowing that the list, right, that mental list never ends. Never. The work that I have to do on myself never ends. And there was a point when I first started out working with Simone, who I mentioned in the book, who was my therapist. I saw it as being very linear. Like, okay, we're going to start here and we're going to work through. I'm going to do all these steps, and at the end, I'm going to be good. Like all of this.
You'll graduate.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to put in the work and then be done. No, that's not not how it goes. I wish it were different. I always say, like, I wish it were different, but it's really not. And once I got that, things changed for myself. I wasn't as hard on myself because it was like, okay, I mean, fine. It's always just an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for me to learn and go deeper.
Hi, Stephanie. It's Kate. How are you?
Hey, Kate. I'm good. How you doing?
Good. I don't have any questions, but I thought the point that you brought up about like there being an infinite number of ways to show up for your kids was so powerful. Like I literally went out tonight to Target and bought a purple shirt for Jake because Purple Day is on Friday. I mean, for the love of Pete, he's 3. Does he even know that Purple Day is Friday? No. But then I'm like, oh, he doesn't have a purple shirt. Why doesn't he have a purple shirt? I got to go out and get a purple shirt.
Right.
It just
yeah. Because who doesn't have a purple shirt, Kate?
Right? Exactly. So there's just that inner critic, and I'm like, oh my God, he doesn't have a purple shirt. Oh, I got to go get it. But like in the grand scheme of things, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think when you're saying there's an infinite number of ways to show up for your kids, it's not necessarily going to be that he has a purple shirt on Purple Day, but that you know, there's so many other ways that you can show up for your kid. You know, and there's nothing wrong either with going out and getting a purple shirt for Purple Day, but
no, if you got purple shirt, purple pants, the whole ensemble, that would be totally fine. If that's what you wanted to do and you know, you felt good doing that, awesome. You know, but that was, I agree, super powerful when it came up, just to say like, there are infinite number of ways you can show up and they're all right. They're all correct.
Yes.
Like it's not just because do you feel like majority of parenting advice is do it this way? I feel that way a lot of times. And that's why I feel so much more comfortable talking with the moms about themselves instead of parenting, because there isn't a one size fits all approach. I mean, even within my 3 kids, I have to take 3 different approaches just because they're 3 different people. Although at one point I thought that, oh no, it worked with our first, it'll work with second, third, it's easy, until my daughter let us know very clearly that was not the case. I'm like, oh, okay, we need to reevaluate. But yeah, so, oh, that's so cute. I'm not a big fan of the school spirit days, honestly. I mean, not to be a Debbie Downer, but that they're like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, that's my only thing. I'm like, oh, seriously. But I do it because
I do it.
My kids are excited about it.
Yeah. And at the middle school level where I'm teaching, like I get to that point where it's like kids are connected to their school when they're participating and like all that other stuff. But he's 3. So does it really matter? I don't know. But
yeah, I know. But you don't, I know. I totally get that. Well, he has it either way. So I'm glad that was helpful to you.
It's nice to have, you know, sometimes you just need a reminder of some things that we all know, like Holly was saying, deep down inside, we know we're supposed to be okay about this kind of thing. And we're supposed to remember to do this. But sometimes it's nice to just read something that distills it down and says, it's okay. If you felt like you didn't have a good day today, you might have a good day tomorrow. Just, I appreciated the part where you were talking about reflecting on your day and what went well and what didn't.
Yeah.
I think, you know, most of the time my kids are not home anymore. They're college. So, but you're still in communication with them. So you're still a parent all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I from what I hear and can imagine, even when you're not connected with them, they're still in the back of your mind, right? And like that tab is still open where it's that
yes, that's a good way to put it.
Even if it's not like you're actually texting or talking or interacting with them in the moment. I'm starting to notice that with my older ones. And then also just in talking with people who have college age or even like adult kids. I'm like, really? Wow.
I'm 41 and my mom still reminds me to lock the door. And I think, am I going to be like that someday?
Yes, you will. I'm telling you, Holly.
Yeah.
I tell my daughter to drive carefully every time I hear she's going anywhere. And I used to hate it when my mother would tell me that. I would say, Mom, I'm 40 years old. I know how to drive in the rain.
Right.
And now I say it to my daughter, and she's like, no, Mom, I'm not going to drive carefully today. It's because, and she's just as irritated as I was when my mom said it to me.
Yeah.
But I can't help it.
Right. Well, it's that love. That's what it is. It's that way of, just checking in and, okay, don't forget, not that you even think that they would forget, or, that you think that she would do something crazy as she's driving, or that, your mom thinks you wouldn't lock the door. They know, but it's just that way, that expression of, I love you. I want you to be safe. I want you to be well. And because you're one of the most important things to me, even if those words never come out. And that's usually the underlying message there, which makes it a little less annoying, a little bit, a little.
Right.
I think
It's
I
like
appreciate it now more, being a mom. Like I get it
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
It's like in the Princess Bride, when he would say, as you wish, and that meant I love you.
Yeah.
So that's it. My
Exactly.
mother's telling me not to drive in the rain because she loves me.
Right. That's true. You're like, okay, thanks, Mom. Love you too. But I'm still driving.
Well, if anybody, we kept you a long time tonight, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you. My pleasure.
Does anybody else have any questions for Stephanie before we go? Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. This was a late one because we thought maybe it would give busy parents time to get their kids into bed before they came. So hopefully it worked. I will send a follow-up email with Stephanie's link, and thank you again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Have a
everybody.
good night.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, take care.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Bye-bye.